All right, strap yourselves in because today we're going deep into some seriously wild territory.
Oh, yeah, this one's a doozy.
We're talking Peter Strzok, FBI agent caught up in the whole Clinton email saga and the Russia investigation. But here's the twist.
We're not just talking about Strzok himself.
Right, we're looking at him through the lens of Alex Jones.
Which, let me tell you, is a whole other level of deep dive.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking full-blown conspiracy theories, dramatic accusations.
It's a masterclass in how to spin a narrative, even if it means
Bending the truth.
let's just say Jones has a unique way of interpreting events.
And then that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. We're going to break down how he does it, how he takes
The real events, real people.
and turns them into...
Well, I'll let you hear it for yourself. Right off the bat, Jones doesn't hold back on Strzok.
Oh, he goes straight for the jugular.
Demon, devil eyes, the guy's practically a movie villain in Jones' world.
And it's not just the words, it's the delivery. It's like he's channeling some kind of...
Old Testament prophet of doom.
Yeah, there's some fire and brimstone energy there for sure.
But here's the thing. It's effective.
Oh, absolutely. People get drawn into this kind of storytelling.
It taps into primal fears. Makes you feel like
The world's about to end.
everything you thought was true is a lie. And that's where it gets dangerous.
Because it's easy to get swept up in the emotion of it all.
Right, you forget to question, to think critically.
And then there's the whole us versus them mentality he creates.
Oh, yeah. Jones loves to paint a picture of a corrupt elite.
Working against the everyday American.
And Strzok, well, he becomes the poster child for that deep state conspiracy.
Speaking of deep state, Jones doesn't just go after Strzok.
Oh, he widens the net pretty quickly.
He targets the FBI agents who came to support Strzok at his hearing, calls them the Fruit Basket Brigade.
Mocking their appearance, questioning their motives.
And that's where it crosses a line for me.
It's one thing to critique ideas, but to attack people personally,
It's just not right.
especially when these are individuals just doing their jobs, upholding the law.
And let's not forget the whole controversy around Strzok's text messages.
Ah, yes, the infamous 100 million to 0 text.
The one where Strzok says Clinton should win by a landslide.
Which, of course, Jones jumps on as proof of Strzok's anti-Trump bias.
Exhibit A in the case against the deep state.
But let's be real here. It's one text message taken out of context.
And Strzok has said it was hyperbole, not an actual reflection of his professional actions.
Which is a point Jones conveniently ignores, because it doesn't fit the narrative.
So we're starting to see a pattern here. Jones takes bits and pieces of information
Strips away the nuance, the context.
and presents it in a way that supports his pre-existing worldview.
It's like he's building a house of cards.
A very shaky house of cards.
But one that's designed to appeal to a very specific audience, an audience that's already primed to believe
That there's a conspiracy afoot.
that the system is rigged against them. And that's where it becomes really, really dangerous.
Because when people stop trusting institutions, when they stop believing in facts,
It creates chaos. It undermines our ability to function as a society. And that's what we're going to keep exploring as we go deeper into this deep dive.
buckle up, folks. It's going to be a wild ride.
You know, it's wild how Jones manages to take these already complex situations and just amplifies the crazy.
Absolutely. It's like he thrives on chaos.
But it's more than just entertainment, right? There are real-world consequences to this kind of rhetoric.
Oh, 100%. When you constantly erode trust in institutions,
Like the FBI, the Justice Department.
yeah, you create this environment where people don't know who or what to believe anymore.
And that's fertile ground for conspiracy theories to take root.
And for people to act on those beliefs.
Which is a terrifying thought. And it's not just about abstract institutions, right? Jones goes after individuals, too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, remember when he goes on that rant about Rosenstein?
The Deputy Attorney General, yeah, he practically calls the guy Satan, based on nothing more than his appearance.
It's insane. And it's dehumanizing, too. Like, he's trying to strip away Rosenstein's credibility.
And make him seem like some kind of cartoon villain, which, again, it's effective. It makes it easier for people to dismiss anything Rosenstein says or does.
Because he's already been painted as the enemy. And it's not just Rosenstein either. Jones lumps all the FBI agents who supported Strzok into this category of, like,
Deranged loons. Straight out of a Hollywood movie, he says. It's like he's trying to create this image of a vast, shadowy cabal working against the American people.
which, feeds into that whole deep state narrative. But let's get back to Strzok specifically. Because there's this key moment where he gets removed from the Mueller investigation.
Right after those controversial text messages surface. And predictably, Jones spins this as a victory for his side.
Proof that he's been right all along. that the deep state is real and they're out to get Trump.
But what really happened? Strzok was removed because those texts raised concerns about his impartiality, the appearance of bias, even if it wasn't actually affecting his work.
Right, the Justice Department made it clear that his removal wasn't about punishing him for his opinions.
But more about maintaining public trust in the integrity of the investigation. Which, fair enough.
But Jones, of course, ignores all that nuance. He cherry-picks the facts that fit his narrative.
And leaves out anything that might complicate the story, like the fact that Strzok was also heavily involved in the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails.
Which doesn't exactly scream anti-Trump crusader, does it?
It's selective storytelling at its finest.
Yeah.
And it works because it confirms people's biases. It gives them a simple explanation for a complex world.
And it makes them feel like they're in the know, like they're part of some select group that sees the truth behind the curtain.
Which can be really intoxicating, but also really dangerous, because it leads to this kind of echo chamber effect.
Where you only hear information that reinforces your existing beliefs, and you become less and less able to consider alternative viewpoints.
And that's how we end up with such a polarized society, where people can't even agree on basic facts.
Yeah, it's like we're living in two different realities, and it's hard to see how we bridge that gap.
So we've seen how Alex Jones operates, but where do we go from here? How do we deal with this constant barrage of misinformation?
Yeah, it can feel like a losing battle sometimes. You try to have a rational conversation, you try to stick to the facts.
But it's like people are so entrenched in their beliefs.
And they're getting all this reinforcement from these echo chambers online.
Exactly. It's hard to know how to even begin to bridge that divide.
So what do? Just give up, admit that truth is dead, and we're all doomed to live in our own little bubbles of reality?
Well, I'm not ready to surrender just yet. I think there's still hope. But it requires a shift in mindset. We need to move beyond just fact-checking.
Okay, so if it's not about just throwing facts at people, what is it about?
It's about understanding how our minds work, how we're wired to respond to certain types of information.
You mean like how we're more likely to believe something if it confirms our existing biases?
Exactly. And how our emotions can hijack our rational thinking.
So it's like we need to develop some kind of emotional intelligence around information.
I like that. Emotional intelligence. Being aware of how our feelings influence our perceptions.
And how those feelings can be manipulated.
Right. Like when Jones uses fear-mongering tactics, he's not appealing to logic.
He's going straight for the gut.
And that's powerful stuff. It triggers our fight or flight response, makes us more likely to believe whatever he's selling.
So how do we protect ourselves? How do we build up a resistance to that kind of manipulation?
It starts with awareness. Recognizing when someone is trying to play on our emotions.
Okay, so the next time I'm watching Alex Jones and I feel that surge of anger,
or fear or outrage,
that's my cue to take a step back.
Exactly. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Is this information actually credible? Or is it just designed to push my buttons?
It's like building up an immune system against misinformation. The more we're exposed to it,
And the more we practice recognizing the techniques,
the less likely we are to fall for it.
and the less power it has over us. But it's not just about individual resilience. We also need to build a more resilient society. A society that values critical thinking.
And civil discourse.
Exactly. A society where we can disagree without demonizing each other.
Which, let's be real, is a tall order these days.
It is, but it's not impossible. It starts with each of us, choosing to engage in a more thoughtful, more respectful way.
So, to our listeners out there, here's our challenge. The next time you encounter someone who has a completely different view of the world,
Resist the urge to write them off.
instead try to understand where they're coming from. Ask questions. Listen.
You might be surprised by what you learn, and who knows, you might even change their mind.
Or they might change yours. The point is to keep those lines of communication open. To remember that we're all in this together.
Trying to make sense of a complicated world.
And that's what this deep dive has been all about. Helping you navigate that world with a little more awareness.
A little more critical thinking.
And a whole lot more hope.
Thanks for joining us.